Hey, how's it going, everybody? Shaun here from Zoobox, coming at you again with another Blu-ray review. Today, we're going to talk about something that was released, I believe it was a couple years ago, or maybe a year ago it came out. 2009's Drag Me to Hell. Sam Raimi's kind of back to basics, return to form film after he was done with all the Spider-Man trilogy and how that worked out. He wanted to kind of bring things back to basics. He wanted to, I don't know, just kind of get back in touch with his former filmmaking self, his younger days. And he produced this kind of very tight, kind of small, not intimate, but Evil Dead 2-ish kind of movie. And I've always been a big fan of it. I saw it in the theater on opening night. Back in the day, we used to have midnight screenings. Yeah, they didn't just have the Thursday night preview screenings, which basically now just movies come out Thursday night. They call them preview screenings, but they really just come out Thursday night. Back in the day, you used to have to wait until midnight and go see a movie. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun doing that back in the day. I used to do it all the time with some friends. But before we get into the movie itself and I start regaling you with tales of my youth, I want to talk about this release specifically. It's May 14th, 2020. HamiltonBooks.com. You can get this for $11 right now. It is still in stock as of today. I checked right before I started recording, so you can still get this for $11. And what this is, it has two cuts of the movie. It has the theatrical version and the unrated version. Now, to be honest, there isn't a whole hell of a difference, no pun intended, with the theatrical and the unrated version. I think maybe the unrated version has like a few more seconds, really, of just a few more shots of gore. I don't even think there's any extra swearing or anything like that in it, honestly. But this is a good release. The film was mastered in 2K, so this is directly from the 2K Intermediate, and both versions, both the theatrical and the unrated, and it comes with all of the previous special features from the previous release, which was it did come out on Blu-ray and DVD. And then on as far as the new ones, it has a couple interviews. It has the interviews with the main star, Alison Lohman. It has the interview with what's her name? I'm fucking forgetting it. Lorna Raver. She plays like the old gypsy woman that curses Alison Lohman's character Christine. And then there's also a really cool feature about the score, because the score of this is actually pretty underrated. It's almost like a traditional horror adventure score. It feels kind of old fashioned, but in like a really great way. It's got like a really full orchestral kind of sound and presentation. And the guy Christopher Young, who's the composer, he talks about it for like about 20 minutes and about how excited he was to work with Sam Raimi. So if you don't have this, or even if you have the old Blu-ray, I would actually recommend this. If you can get this for a good price, this is totally worth it. I probably would have eventually at some point, I would have bought this for like $20. I hadn't gotten around to it just because I was waiting to see if it would come on sale, and it just happened to show up on Hamilton Books. So I was pleasantly surprised. Clicked the order button, got it, and I'm very happy with it. Very happy with it. Watched it this morning in the wee hours to kind of get a refresher. It had been a few years since I'd seen this movie. I wasn't expecting my opinion to really change, and honestly, it hasn't. It's pretty much the same. This is a really, really fun movie. Sam Raimi wrote this with his brother Ivan. He works with Ted and Ivan. They're pretty closely. They're all part of his Ghost House Pictures production studio, and they're always doing stuff together. Even from back in the day, like Ted Raimi used to show up in all Sam Raimi's movies and anything he produced, like Hercules and Xena the Warrior Princess and all that stuff. So, they worked on this before Spider-Man, actually. And once he got signed on to Spider-Man, obviously that kind of snowballed. It took him away from this for about a decade. Apparently, in the interim, he was trying to get other people to direct it. He wanted Edgar Wright to direct it. And Edgar Wright was prepping or in the middle of about to start shooting Hot Fuzz, so he turned it down. And mostly because he just wanted to see Raimi make it. He was like, no, man, you got to make this movie. You should make it. And I'm glad he did. I'm glad he did. Not to say that Edgar Wright would have done a bad job with this, because there's a lot of similarities. Obviously, Sam Raimi was definitely a touchstone for Edgar Wright, and I think that shows up in the tone of his work. Maybe not, specifically the kind of the melodrama of Wright's stuff, but the tone is very Raimi-esque. And you can see that in pretty much all of his movies. So it kind of would have been like a karaoke version. It would have been like a cover band, playing a Raimi song, for lack of a better way to put it. But yeah, I still really like this movie. It's a really tight kind of wham bam, like I said, return to form for Sam Raimi. He just goes back and he's just obviously having a ton of fun making this movie. It really does feel like a successor to Army of Darkness, or probably more Evil Dead 2, because it's got just that funny gag, blood and guts kind of humor that Evil Dead 2 has. And because it's like I was talking about yesterday, I did a video about his movie The Quick and the Dead, and he's managed to, the synthesization of like the different types of things he's interested in, like the Three Stooges and slapstick and kind of fantastical comic booky kind of framing. I mean, he was doing that before he did Spider-Man, and this has all that just on a smaller scale, and it's really unique. It's got a really unique kind of flow to it. I would say it's a incredibly paced movie too, and it's got some great performances across the board. Everybody's really great, especially Alison Lohman, who plays Christine Brown, the protagonist. She's a great Raimi character, like in the same way that Bruce Campbell was. I really, honestly, I wish they had done more together after this. I wish Raimi would just get off the fucking mega franchise train and just make a movie like this every couple of years, because it's what he's really good at. And sometimes when he does those mega franchises, like especially because after this he did Oz the Great and Powerful, he loses a little bit of sense of self. Granted, those movies have their moments. The Spider-Man movies feel very Raimi. Oz the Great and Powerful feels like a Raimi movie. He turns every protagonist into like a Bruce Campbell like protagonist, and it's got his little hallmarks, the crash zooms and the whip pans and the horror stuff. They're all there, but it's not as purely distilled as it is in something like Drag Me to Hell. Drag Me to Hell is a real special little movie. It really is. It just showed everybody that like he can still do this. He can still throw down with the best of them. It's like he showed up and showed everybody how it's done again, and back in 2009. I remember I saw it, like I said before, I saw it on a midnight showing in a pretty full theater, and of varying different ages. I was a huge Raimi fan, so I was there. I wanted to. I didn't have to really talk my friends into it, because at least one of my other friends was also, grew up watching Army of Darkness and stuff with me. And we had a great time. Like, just howling with laughter and actually creepiness. And, I mean, there are scene after scene where it contains all of those disparate tones. Like the scene where Alison Lohman, Christine, gets confronted by the gypsy old lady for the first time in the parking garage. I mean, that thing is scary. It's funny. It's gross. It's got some great Sam Raimi-esque lines, like Alison Lohman's like the gypsy woman's like looking into the car after she just kicked her out and closed the door, and she's like, "I beat you, you bitch." I was this morning I was laughing. There's a few lines like that which are just, oh my god, just pure Raimi. Just pure. They even do like a nod line to was it Army of Darkness? Come get some, she says at one point. It's great. It's great fun. But yeah, there's so many. The one thing I like about it, and the thing that I think that makes the pacing work so well, is the sense of escalation. Because it starts like kind of very small and simple, and as the possession goes longer and longer, crazier and crazier and crazier things happen until it kind of culminates in this big seance that ends up failing. And then, then just keeps going off the rails and off the rails even more and more and more. And it's awesome. And it's got one of the craziest, I remember at the time in 2009, it was just, maybe it was naivete or whatever, but it has like such a downer ending that you kind of see coming. I guess you could expect it, but because there is a light touch to the movie, you don't really anticipate it going where it does at the end. Because the main character is not a bad person. At the end of the day, this is like a kind of an allegory or a morality play about the domino effect of negative influence and selfishness and a little bit of greed, and how just one misstep, all it takes is one time to do something shitty, and that's going to negatively affect you forever. And that's kind of the message of the movie, and it pays off with it. It goes through with it. And you don't think it's going to. At least not when I first saw it. When I first saw it, I did not expect it, like I said, because of that tone. It just does not lead you to think that is going to happen at the end. And it's I mean, I just started chuckling this morning. I was watching, I was like, oh my God, like I forgot how wild it is, like this little moment. Even though it feels like they definitely foreshadow it, they tip their hat to this switcheroo that happens towards the end that causes the bad ending to happen. And I don't know, I was just so tickled by it. I like a dark comedy. I like a little darkness in my things, And this has got a lot of great influences as well. It feels like, Raimi, obviously, he grew up with like the Universal monsters and kind of B horror movies from back in the day. And this feels like something that would belong in that universe, which Universal is the first company that actually put this out. So it does fit in with that kind of, that vibe. But it feels like, a little bit like the Wolfman. I got that kind of feeling, you got a gypsy curse. Now you're doomed to figure it out. You definitely feel that strong through line. There's a few other movies I can't remember exactly. I know it was partially based, like he took a lot of inspiration from a book. There's an old book and a movie called Night of the Demon. It's an old British movie. What is it? That which is also based on a short story called Casting the Runes, it says here. So it definitely draws on kind of this older, simpler, archetypal kind of horror movies based on curses and the gypsies. I don't know, was there a time where people were just like kind of concerned about gypsies? Was that like a cultural subtext? Maybe it was like, the foreigner, the immigrant fear of the time period. I mean, gypsies, let's be clear, gypsies are no good. Even today, these Irish tinkers, I live very close to a lot of these, the Irish gypsies. And let me tell you something, okay? Don't trust them. I don't trust them at all. Got a lot of weird beliefs and stuff like that, Don't live in their house for a year. So make sure the demons aren't there and shit like that. Lots of wild stuff. Look up the Irish tinkers. You'll have a good time. But yeah. I mean, that's just, I just wanted to do another quick video. This is definitely a quick one. Unless I got something else to say. Do I have anything else mind-blowing? I really wish that he would go back to this. Like I said, it saddens me so much that I know it's something that, because he's excited to be able to work in those sandboxes with like the superheroes and things like that. I mean, Spider-Man was a big deal for him. He was a huge Spider-Man fan. I mean, the reason why Spider-Man 3 turned out the way it did is because he was forced to compromise like very heavily. Putting Venom and whatnot in there. And then we never got Spider-Man 4 and the reason why he wanted to do Spider-Man 4 was because he felt so depressed about Spider-Man 3. He's like, I don't want to go out on Spider-Man 3. And I was all for it. And then it unceremoniously got pulled out from under him. And then they made the Amazing Spider-Man movies, which also just were fucking awful. Like, as bad as Spider-Man 3 is, and I would never defend that movie. hate it or anything, but I wouldn't go to bat for it. As bad as it is, I would still rather watch Spider-Man 3 than either of those Amazing Spider-Man movies. And probably even the Marvel ones, the Far From Home and Homecoming. I think those are kind of boring. I don't really like them. I think that kid is cast well, but I guess it's probably nostalgia. It's probably just, I was of a certain age when those movies came out. I was not a huge comic book Marvel person at all. So Spider-Man, for me, was entirely based on the Fox Kids cartoon. That was what I knew about Spider-Man. And then I kind of knew the cheesier, older cartoons. Maybe I'd read some older comics. My dad had some older kind of anthology books laying around. I probably read those as well. So I was like that golden era, golden age Spider-Man is what those movies are reflective of. And that's what I was familiar with. And that's what I liked. So I still do. That's still what I prefer when it comes to Spider-Man. I think, the Into the Spider-Verse is the first one to kind of nail a similar feeling where I felt like it kind of encompassed the character in a way that made sense to me. But yeah, I mean, he's going to do the Doctor Strange 2 Enter the Multiverse or something. It's that Nightmare in the Multiverse or something. So I'm definitely going to see it. I couldn't help myself. I couldn't leave my man Raimi just hanging there without getting a ticket, virtual or otherwise. Yeah. But drag me to hell. Like, even if you don't buy this, if you're not interested in purchasing this Blu-ray, I would suggest watching it again if you haven't seen it in a long time. It's a fun movie. It's almost, I would say, almost like if you've got kids that are like 10 or 11 years old, this would be perfect for them. It's like got all those classic spooky archetypes. But it's also like funny and gross, and it's a really special movie. Especially considering the time it was made. I mean, 2009, we were in generic horror hell. Movies like Ghost Ship and shit like that were coming out back in those days. I mean, Ghost Ship was probably early 2000s, but just like these hacky fucking studio, gross, boring PG-13 movies. And this is PG-13 too. Don't get me wrong. This is PG-13. But it does not suffer for it at all. It doesn't suffer for it at all. It is because it's got that light cartoony touch to it that it just makes it all work. I'm so happy that it holds up as well as it does. I didn't think that I was gonna dislike it or anything, but I wondered. It had been a while since I'd watched it. It'd probably been 5 or 6 years since I've actually sat down and watched it. So it's cool. That's the cool thing about buying Blu-rays, man. You more incentivized to actually watch it. The streaming services, they're just too many options, too many things. I got a list a mile long. Oh, that's on here. Cool, I'll watch that. Oh, that's on here. Cool, I'll watch that. Never watch it. But when I buy something, I'm like, nah, I spend money. Well, not that I'm not spending money on, streaming services, but I'm spending cash money. I'm like, nope, gotta have it. Gotta do this. Gotta get it. Yeah. Watch Drag Me to Hell. Go to HamiltonBooks.com. Check this out. That's not a paid advertisement or anything. They also got they've got other stuff on there too you might be interested in. You never know. If you're in the market for buying shit that you don't need. You like to fill your house up with junk? Well, clearly I do. So, there you go. All right, thanks for watching and listening, everybody, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow. I think I got another idea about what I'm going to do for tomorrow's little video. Little left to center. We'll figure out something. All right. Shaun out.